Hello and welcome to my channel. In a few of my previous videos where I spoke about my eating habits, I alluded to the fact that I've undergone somewhat of a physical transformation, if you want to call it that, maybe even a reformation. In that a few years back I was at a weight of 320 pounds with a body mass index BMI of 42.2. I'm currently around 170 pounds with a body mass index of 22.4. I wanted to take a few minutes today to talk about how I went from being fat, sick, probably near death, to being what I consider in the best physical condition I've been in my life in the better part of a year. I do want to start with a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not recommending that anyone else do what I did. I'm just telling you what happened to me and what seemed to work out well for me. I'll start with a little background, and I'm not going to go over my whole life, but I'll start in the last decade or so. I started to get lazy. I wasn't exercising. Sometimes life gets in the way of living. Little by little, I was gaining weight. Was well over 200 pounds, then close to 300 pounds, then over 300 pounds. One morning a few years ago, I woke up very early to go to the bathroom, and as I was about to get back into bed, my right arm was completely dead, like it was just hanging there. No movement, no feeling, nothing. At first I thought, well, maybe I pinched a nerve or something, but after a few minutes and it didn't get better, I decided I'd better call 911. When I called 911, I realized I couldn't speak. I mean, I could make sounds and say words, but the sentences in my head were not what was coming out of my mouth. Well, then I knew what was happening because I went through it with my father. I was having a stroke. I had, in a period of a year and a half, a total of 3 strokes and 2 TIAs. They discovered that I had an atrial septal defect called a patent foramen ovale, a hole in the upper chambers of my heart that I had had my entire life. Some people go their whole lives and it never affects them. Me, it affected when I was 50 years old. Don't know why at that particular time. When I was in the hospital for the second stroke, and they did the scan of my head and neck, they came to me and said, well, do you know you have a goiter? I said, well, no, I didn't know anything about that, but thyroid problems do run in my family. Well, turns out I had thyroid cancer. So after the strokes, I decided to have the PFO, the patent foramen ovale, repaired, which they did. Modern medicine is incredible. They didn't have to do an open heart procedure. They went through the femoral veins on either side of my groin, and they put in an occluder device that covered the hole. It's like a little umbrella. They poked through the hole and then opened it, and it patched up the hole. The thyroid cancer was in stage 1, so all that was required for that was surgery, and I had my problems fixed. I also had to have, I had a few other problems. I had another surgery I had to have because of internal hemorrhage, and another hospitalization because of hemorrhage because of the blood thinners I was on before I had the heart procedure. And that was all well and good, but I didn't think anything of it. I had the surgeries, but in that time I had gotten even lazier. I had missed so much work and I was so sick that I took an early retirement, and I was basically getting out of bed sitting around all day watching TV, eating, and waiting to die. Along came March of 2020. The second week of March, the first couple of days, I was in the emergency room twice with kidney stones, which I had had in the past. That wasn't such a big deal other than, of course, the discomfort. But I was sick. They were infected. I was running a temperature, had a high white blood cell count, the whole 9 yards. I wasn't eating very much. By the end of that week, and I started to feel better, our governor basically shut the state down because of COVID. So I really couldn't go anywhere. I didn't have anything to do. I had been retired from my day job. I'm a professional musician. I was still playing in the evenings, but that went out the window for a while. Couldn't go to my buffets or my restaurants, so I would go to the grocery store once a week, plan out my meals. I was eating a little more sensibly, and I had already lost some weight from those days of being sick because I couldn't eat. And after I got down to, I only lost about 10 or 15 pounds, and I had nothing to do and nowhere to go. I said, well, why don't I start exercising? I had bought a recumbent bike that I'd planned on using and I was too lazy. So I started using that a little bit, started taking a walk every day, started very minor, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes on the bike, walk a mile. And little by little, I just started increasing that. And the more I exercised, the more weight I lost. And the more weight I lost, the better I felt and the more I exercised. A funny thing happened then. As I increased the exercise, rather than eating less, I started to have to eat more. Within a year, I had gotten down to what I am now, 170 pounds. And at the end of about the first year and a half, I started, instead of walking every day, I started to jog. And this was an unusual thing because I had never been able to run, even in school, where you had to do the quarter mile once around the track. I would be out of breath and dizzy. The doctors aren't saying one way or another, but I always thought, well, you're just in piss poor shape. I'm starting to think it was that heart defect, because now that it's fixed, I was jogging, I wasn't getting out of breath, I wasn't feeling tired, I wasn't feeling dizzy. Make a long story kind of short, I started out, again, 10 or 15 minutes on the recumbent bike and walking a mile, to now I ride the recumbent bike every morning for an hour and a half and I jog 10 miles. I also, on days when the weather's good and I'm not busy, I'll take a walk in the afternoon or evening, not a power walk, but a fairly brisk walk, maybe another 2 to 5 miles, so that I am now actually having to consume more calories than when I weighed 320 pounds, which is a great thing because I love to eat and it's not something I wanted to give up, but I feel better. It's cliche to say, well, I never felt better in my life, but I really haven't. I feel better than I did as a teenager, just by being able to get up and move, and I can live the way I want. I can eat the way I want. My blood pressure, I never had high blood pressure, even when I was heavy. I never had coronary artery disease. They looked at me the first time and they thought, well, I must be a diabetic. Now my blood sugar was always normal, but right now my blood pressure is 100 over 70. Again, I jog 10 miles every morning, and the one thing that hasn't gotten any better, and it's another familial thing, a hereditary thing, is I do have arthritis. My joints kind of yell at me when I overdo the exercise, but still, I transformed myself just by part of it was having the procedures to correct the health issues, but then just getting up and moving and getting some exercise and not being sedentary all day. One of the first videos, the first video I did on YouTube was talking about a local civic and religious celebration where I sampled the food that we call the Big Time. One of the features of that is a parade through town every year. I'm going to close. It was canceled in 2020 because of COVID, but I'm going to close by putting up pictures of myself in 2019 and 2021, sort of a before and after, just to show what a little determination can do. And again, I'm not recommending that anybody suddenly go out and start running 10 miles if you've been sitting on your butt all day. I'm just saying this is what worked for me. And if you and your doctor can come up with a plan that works for you, I hope that this might serve as some inspiration for you. As always, thank you for watching. This is probably the most you'll hear this cynical introvert talking at one time. But thank you for putting up with it. And please like, share, and subscribe.